a seat to the bar and join us for another episode of McAnally's Pubcast, a podcast exploring the fun and fantastical mind of Jim Butcher's The Dresden Files series. Hosts Tansen, Jess, and Maggie bring you another round of literary analysis on this immense, immersive, and colorful environment inhabited by Harry Dresden, the world's only licensed private investigator and professional wizard. Join an active and engaged community of new and die-hard dedicated fans focused on the fabulous themes, theories, characters, context, lore, and more. This is McAnally's Dresden Files Pubcast, brought to you by Free Flow Rambling. Conjure by it at your own risk. Welcome to the McAnally's Pubcast, brought to you by Free Flow Rambling. This is episode 9.4, A Game of Tactics, where we are covering the novel Summer Night. My name is Tansen, and I'm joined by Maggie.
Hello.
And Jess.
Hotel. Real quick update. One of our guests, Matt, he has a Kickstarter going for a board game for Space Mole Games. Their game is called Gadget Grid, and you can find their Kickstarter under the name Gadget Grid. Or if you look up their social media on Facebook or Instagram as Space Mole Games, you'll find the link to their Kickstarter there as well. They've got 3 weeks to fund this board game, and we really want to play it. So if you like board games, and you like monsters, and you like intergalactic disputes, check out the board game. It's a card game, it's a board game, it's a dice game, and it's a fight your friends to the death in the middle of space game.
Chapter 5. After being magically searched by Morgan, Dresden enters the theater and the White Council's meeting begins. Merlin begins with suggesting to immediately vote upon Wizard Schneider to be instated as the next senior council member. The matter of a discussion is forced, resulting in Ebenezar being voted in instead. The meeting moves on to discuss the details of the current war with the Red Court. It is revealed the Red Court has offered peace in exchange for Dresden.
So Harry just figured out what this meeting is all about and what's weighing on him. So he's like, shit. They're going to need someone to fill Simon's spot. And Martha figures that Merlin will want one of the Germans. And Ebenezar has opinions about that.
Apparently the Merlin doesn't like how many Americans are on the council.
Yeah. Listens to it as another good line here.
I am the only American on the council.
Typical. The only real. Not like you Johnny-come-latelys. So I suppose, again, we've got Listens to Wind, we've got Martha. I don't know. I mean, Simon, they refer to him as the Russian, so presumably that's where he was living and stuff, too. I don't think he was a Russian in America, so I don't know how many more there are. 2 is too many on a 7-person council, I guess.
Already over it.
Because I'm like, we haven't in this second, but very shortly we're going to meet the other ones, and the Merlin's not American, and I'm pretty sure Ancient Mai's not American, and Lafortier doesn't really sound like it either, so...
Right.
And if Simon was a Russian, then apparently these 2 are, I don't know.
Is there anybody else that we're missing? Like, how many other...
No, that's...
The gatekeeper.
Oh, the gatekeeper, sorry, yes, yeah.
Okay, because
He
we don't
could be
hear about
American.
the gatekeeper.
I guess
He could be American.
but, yeah. It seems unlikely given his accent.
There's already 2 women on the council, so...
Oh, right.
Well, damn.
And one's an American woman, so right there, that's like...
Yeah, double whammy.
Double whammy, so... Ebenezar thinks this is bullshit. He's like, well...
I should get to take Simon's place since I'm the most senior, blah, blah, blah. And everyone's like, you don't even like the council. Why would you want to be on it? And he's like, politics. I don't have a choice now.
Yeah, she's like, she's not going to be happy if you pressed a claim now. And he's like, oh, I can't tell you how that breaks my heart. So obviously Ebenezar, I mean, in case you didn't get it from Harry's earlier comments about calling them all a bunch of lollygagging skunk wallows and that Ebenezar obviously has some more respect or acceptance or something than Harry, maybe it's just resignation being around longer, but obviously he doesn't have a whole lot of respect for the authority of the council and the Merlin and all of that, right? Or maybe just the Merlin, maybe he respects the council and sort of the general idea of what its purpose is, but yeah, obviously doesn't see eye to eye with that. Again, that was another comment that he made just at the end of the last chapter before this. She's like, what the Merlin will say? He's like, yeah, I know what he'll say. I don't even have to hear him say it anymore. And as usual, he's half right, half wrong, and all gutless. So pretty much sums up what
I could see Dresden coming by his opinion of the council quite
well,
without even having experienced it himself.
Yes.
Just from Ebenezer.
I was gonna say,
As established, Justin never even told Harry that there was a council. Harry didn't know there was a magical community. As far as he was concerned, it was just Justin and Harry.
and yeah,
You know?
Elena
So he didn't even know. His first, knowledge of the council was them trying to execute him, and then
Yes.
him living with Ebenezer.
Right.
So yeah, it's fully informed by
experience and
the opinions of those
indoctrination.
around him. Yeah. But Harry is still, he's his own man, and he's like, I'll go in alone and do my own, stand on my own 2 feet, and take whatever they throw at me, and blah blah.
Yeah,
And Ebenezer's a little bit like,
you're an idiot.
yeah,
Sure you will, kid.
yeah.
I think so. The other two depart to go in, and they have a moment, and this is where, and again, you reel it back a little bit to where he's kind of trying to, get things on an even keel, and and he's like, make it all better. He's like, so how's your Latin? And he's like, not too bad.
Yeah, he's kind of seeing if he's prepared for the meeting in some ways.
Yeah, and he's like, you gotta hang on to your temper. You've got a reputation for a hothead for some reason. Yeah. He's like, I do not. And he's like, you're always stubborn and contrary. I am not. You just get that playful bickering.
Yeah.
Like, you're so contrary. No, I'm not. You disagree with everything. No, I don't.
Well, Dresden does something interesting. He suggests that Ebenezer shouldn't enter with him. Like, he makes that decision that it would be bad for Ebenezer to be seen with him, and makes him go in first, which Ebenezer doesn't argue with. It doesn't seem like he's necessarily all that comfortable with it either, but decides to go in by himself.
And let Harry be his own man, It's maybe a good image for Harry to, not be cowering behind Ebenezer, so to speak, when they go in,
Right.
Let him be his own person in this moment. But obviously it then also gives Morgan the opening he needs.
Yeah.
Yeah, good old Morgan guarding the theater with another warden.
Morgan and some unnamed warden.
Sam the Eagle?
Yeah, so he's trying to be all noble about it, and Ebenezer's kind of like, whatever, but okay. Yeah, he's a nice, finally, I've been waiting for this, Dresden. Finally, you're going to face justice. And he's like, I see you had a nice big bowl of Fanaticos this morning.
As friendly as always.
As always. And he's like, I got off those charges. Thanks to you, actually. And Morgan's just like, fuck you. I
reported the facts. I didn't know anyone was going to actually fucking read it.
Yeah, right. Bitch. Didn't know anyone was going to, believe it and think that made you come out good.
The other warden scans Dresden with a crystal and finds him clear, but Morgan insists these ward hounds need to inspect him. And they're this kind of livingstone statue. It's like, I loved this little description here. I was like, that is so cool.
It's cool. Well, it's nice that it picks something that, we all have seen at some point or can easily reference, right? So, with other things, let's say even with Mr. or whatever, he can describe the cat and you can, envision your own thing, but unless you've ever specifically seen, a huge 40-pound tomcat or lynx, you're not, you know what I mean? Everybody's gonna have a slightly different idea of what Mr. looks like to them or whatever, right? Whereas, these, you're like, it's a very specific type of art, sculpture, style. I don't know what word I'm looking for here, but yeah.
Statuary,
but yeah, these Chinese temple dog things, and you're like, oh, those. I wouldn't want one of those just walking up to me.
And that they're still stone, but walking.
They're still stone, but you can see the muscle rippling in this. Yeah, it's craziness.
Yeah, so one of the dogs growls at Dresden's wounds given by Mab. And Morgan insists that he removes the dressing. And fortunately, that does satiate the dog. The dog is just like, oh, yeah, whatever, okay.
Yeah, well, Harry's nervous because that's what he says. He's like they're alive, but they're not a living, thinking, sentient being. They're just robotic, kind of. They've been given a set of commands to respond to. So he's
and they've made mistakes before.
And they have made, he's like, it's not often, but there have been accidents, right? So he's like, I don't want to get fucking eaten by a dog because Mab, sneezed on me or something,
That's funny, though, because, the only way for there to be accidents is for the council to have met at fault, and they wouldn't have done that. So how does Harry know that there was an accident? It's not like the council would have done a full-fledged investigation.
Okay, but you know what? There's still people like Ebenezer Ebenezar, who's like, even if it's not officially recognized, they'd still.
Still, though.
Yeah, he'd
But
spill
yeah,
the beans.
yeah, he would totally be like,
Those
well,
stupid shits did this last time.
yeah.
Now they won't even say they did anything wrong.
Right, exactly. Exactly.
Ebenezar's like, well, actually, this is actually true later on in the books, but Ebenezar's like the first conspiracy theorist about them. He's like, can't trust him, man.
So not only are these just intimidating and all, because I think he says they're belt high to him or something, waist high. So again, given he's 6'9", like these aren't,
That's a pretty decent size,
Yorkies.
yeah.
These are, yeah, they're bigger than most standard large breed dogs.
And if they're made of stone, they got some weight.
So, rightfully nervous. So, anyways, thankfully, it's just because the other warden is all like, oh, wizard blood is, just kind of potent on its own. And thankfully...
He might just be angry. Or scared.
Or scared, or, possibly a lot of both. Yeah, and when Harry tries to dispute it, when he's like, there's no reason for that, then Morgan's just automatically like, okay, well, you can't come in then. And Harry's like, are you fucking kidding me? He's like, oh, you don't want to take the test, I'm not letting you in. So, yeah, Harry's like...
Fortunately, Dresden is allowed in. And he enters the theater, and it's packed with this multitude of wizards from every continent and every variety. And he does notice that, well, he looks like the worst of the whole bunch.
Yes, even though there's definitely some other, obvious, like, apprentices in that. He's still, and especially even worse that, he's not even just someone's, like, lackey apprentice that is, like, brand new and really young and maybe doesn't know what's going on. It's like, yeah, you're actually, like, an official adult member of this now. So he's like, great.
So I have a random question, because we're talking about all this membership of the White Council. Now, here's a what if. What if a wizard from the White Council is turned into a vampire, and so he maintains so he becomes basically a vampire wizard.
Bad things.
And so he can't remain on the White Council?
They'd kick him out so fast.
Oh, yeah, no, I don't think, he definitely wouldn't get to, I don't think he'd want to, other than for, like, subversive reasons.
Yeah, no.
He wouldn't want to be, but...
And, like, you've seen, like, we saw Mavra, we saw Bianca, like, they are huge magic users and they're not in the White Council. They're just not invited.
So,
yeah.
Prerequisite is humanity.
Human. You gotta be human.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, you have to be immortal. Yeah.
They are team human, just with extra powers. They're human plus.
Yes, but it does mention they have some other dignitaries and allies or something, because he says the variety of humanity, blah blah blah. A roped off section at the far right of the hall held the envoys of various organizations of allies and supernatural interests, most of whom I only had. So that sort of implies to me that not everybody in that little thing is strictly human, right? So some of their whatever supernatural...
A handful of alliances,
of, maybe there's some gnomes in the corner or something like that. But yeah, they're not part of the...
What's the word? An emissary?
Emissaries.
No, that's not the word I wanted to use, though.
Well,
the human word that we use. Embassy.
Ambassador.
Ambassadors. A lot of that,
Yeah. No, I definitely don't think they'd be allowed. I definitely think it would be bad news, because I think that's part of what Harry says. Because Harry was just talking about that in the last book with them being all drugged up, that if they got him on their side, how much horrible and bad that would be, him having the inner knowledge of the council and stuff that he has, and being a full
Right, I guess because he
wizard.
could be manipulated by...
If he gets turned or enthralled or whatever.
So he's compromised at that point, so...
Majorly. So yeah, so no matter which way you slice it, it wouldn't be good for them. And then, they definitely wouldn't want to let anybody remain on the council.
So even when they were on good terms, they're still opposite allies.
Plus, like, the whole rule of, like, laws of magic, like, as a vampire, you'd instantly be breaking them.
Well, yeah.
Right.
Good point.
So,
yeah.
Okay.
Although it just says you can't kill them with magic. So I suppose if you're biting
Yeah,
people's
you want to suck
necks,
their blood. That's okay.
you're just outright murdering people. That's not technically against the laws of
You
magic.
can walk down the street and shoot people with your gun all you want, Harry. It's every time you bring out your staff, there's a problem.
Yeah. Although I think, didn't we discuss this a little bit with that? Because we were like, if you're the drugged and stuff like that, when we were like, would that be breaking the law of magic on calling other beings to yourself? What the hell is it? And he gets mad at him for Dream's Toot. He's not enslaving him or anything. He just, like, called him up. But if you're a vampire with your magic spit, you are definitely, like, enslaving people.
Enthralling.
So I was like, yeah, did that cover under magical, or is that because it's, like, a natural byproduct of...
Well, the nice thing is that vampires aren't allowed on the court, so they don't have to decide.
the council? Yeah.
On the council. They don't have to decide. where the line is.
But yeah, he has another interesting description of walking through with all those people and all those magical auras, that it becomes a slightly somewhat tangent. You know, normally it's not the thing you really notice. And he's commented, like you saw it a little bit when he shook hands with Lydia, and then, you know, the doorknob and stuff with Mab, that, you know, if there's contact, you can almost always definitely pick up some kind of magical presence or whatever. But here there's just so many wizards in one place that he's like, it's kind of like walking through cobwebs, like brushing around all these auras and vibes of everybody. You know, it's like there's enough of a strong presence here to actually, and of course that it's already killed all like the air conditioning and the lights. I like that. It's like not even the air conditioning, but it's like not even the lights. It's like just the candles on the table is all the lights you've got in this theater. I'm like, wow, what ambiance.
So much for the fire code.
yeah, right. That's why they've magically sealed the doors as well. So also to keep, you know, prying ears and eyes out, but also it's like we really don't need the fire marshal showing up right now. We'd be hooped.
So Dresden joins Ebenezar, and then the Merlin promptly moves to start the meeting.
Yeah, and I find that hilarious, too, because he's like, I'll let you go in ahead of me, you know, and just in case, you know, I don't want to be associated and have you tainted in any way. And then he walks in and the place is full, and McCoy's like, hey, come sit over here. And he's like, okay, well, I guess I will go instantly sit down next to you and be a part of your table. Not even like I looked around and there wasn't, and like looks like he went and chose. Ebenezar's like, yeah, right here, just take this chair. It's like, Haas, told you were dumb. Yeah.
The Merlin addresses Dresden in Latin.
I was gonna say, unfortunately for Harry,
but very
it's
fortunately
instantly
for us.
Latin. Yes. Okay.
Right? The Merlin doesn't hold back his opinion at all. How thoughtful of you to join us in discussions of the war you started. It's good to know that you have such respect for this council.
Frank.
Whoa.
Right.
Not going to be biased at all. Yeah.
Yeah, no, not
Not
at
the
all.
Merlin.
No,
No, he is a man of balance, forgivingness, kindness, understanding, fairness.
Yeah, and very obviously, you know, taking in his appearance. So he's like, oh, so just in case anybody might not have noticed, now for sure everybody noticed. So it's like,
Cool digs, idiot.
yeah. No, Diggs is like housing duds.
Cool threads, idiot.
There you go.
I love this, like, Dresden trying to speak
Oh
Latin
my god,
moment.
this is the best.
And I thought about this when this was written, did Butcher have access to, I as soon as I saw this, before I even continued reading on to see that he had actually set out what the translation was, I totally went onto a translator and threw the direct Latin quote into a translator just to see what it might have said. And it's kind of close to what Butcher says. Like, it's a little bit off, but, like, I think Butcher's interpretation is much funnier, of course.
Of course. Well, and all, again, if you don't know the language, you don't know what the idioms and... Right, like, how much could it be, but... Are you wondering...
Like, if he had that, like, I can't remember, like, 20 years ago, did we have that kind of access to
did Google Translate was just worse back then, or did he have a literal guy that he
did he
asked?
go to?
Or did he email a professor and was like, how do I say this?
Yeah, I'm thinking more along that line.
Probably email the professor.
That in order to get conversational Latin, that, he must have had sort of some resources to go... And, because I don't think he would have...
Maybe he just speaks Latin.
Well, there are still a few out there. And, maybe being the nerdy kind of guy that Butcher is, maybe he does know some Latin. But, my opinion has always been that, he would have got us some kind of professional sources to, like, translate. And,
I think that's probably the most likely, yeah.
But, they were still about every year at this point, so it would have had to have been around, like, 2004. But this is taking forever and not loading, so...
Which strikes me as that I think that would have been... They would have... Maybe not Google Translates. Maybe Babelfish may have been out there at that point.
Yeah.
I couldn't remember.
I don't know either.
But the Google Translate changes one of them instead of where... First you said, I am sorry, excuse Merlin. A sad, long day held me. I need a different laundress, is what Butcher writes, and then Google Translate. I am the wretched Merlin Magus. The pain of a long day holds me back. You need me next steps. So that's just, instead of laundress, it says steps instead.
There you go. not too far off.
So I can see it like it's close
It was
enough.
kind of, and it was 2004 apparently. Is when Google. I don't know about Google Translate, but Google's 2004. So, yeah.
So long story short, Dresden really
Sucks at Latin.
sucks. Yeah.
Yeah.
Has no idea what he's doing. He's trying. He gets the gist, but
right,
poorly.
just enough to not make it.
Especially good too that like it fully like gets rid of like all the ire and scorn from the council. They're just fully like, what?
I'm fully confused about
Yeah, like they're not like mad. Like he's not even being insulting. They're just like, what?
Yeah.
What?
So Dresden does agree to let Ebenezer translate for him. Thank God.
I need me a different laundress. What? That's what the Merlin said.
To be fair though, a sad long day did hold Harry.
Yeah. So yes, and it just makes it funnier because we're all like, what's the point? And then he's like, well, actually there's a lot of, given all the walks of life that are, I'm like, a lot of people probably don't speak English, and this is why we use the Latin as the common language, and I probably do sound like a raving lunatic.
and he cuts corners on his education of it. He's like that damn correspondence
Yeah,
class.
well, again, it's not like I'm sure there's a lot of places.
Get what you paid for, buddy.
So, yeah.
Well, unfortunately, he can't use a Rosetta Stone, so
Not the modern version of it. You have to find the original.
So the meeting does continue, and the Merlin motions almost immediately to fill the senior council member's open spot.
Yeah. Because he's like, oh yeah, buddy died. Oops, oh well. Okay, let's get on with it.
hate when that happens.
And Ebenezer, while the Merlin is still talking, informs Dresden that the Merlin will have 3 plans to take down Dresden. So we get a little foresight in how methodical the Dresden, or the Merlin.
The Dresden.
Oops.
Yes.
We're not there yet.
It's coming. Not yet, but it's coming.
That'll be that new position.
How methodical the Merlin is. So you'd have a plan, a backup plan, and an ace in the hole.
Yeah.
I'll shoot down the first one, and I'll help you with the second. The third is all yours, though.
Yeah, exactly. So talk about, we were just saying with Mab and her contingencies upon contingencies upon contingencies, but the Merlin tries to plan as, maybe not infinitely, but, right,
So,
do
all
his
of these
best.
supernatural guys, they all know you need a couple extra plan B, C, D,
Well,
They're
Yeah.
so old, they've been dinged too many times. They're like,
Yeah.
fuck that. I'm going to
Yeah,
have
exactly.
plan upon plan.
It's just
gonna say
something you learn from being alive for so long.
I was going to say, on the one hand, there's the whole just supernatural vibe of like, yeah, you never know, maybe what else somebody can do. And then the other hand of simply, experience, right? It's like we talk about all the, every time you get hurt and every time you get, it's like, sure, when you're young and free and you're like, woo, the world is wonderful and people are great. And then you just end up like old and bitter because you're like, everybody's out to screw you. So, yeah imagine 400 years of that.
There's a little bit of a fight about whether or not there should be a vote. Merlin's like, we don't have time, you gotta push us forward. And the rest of the senior council is like, no, we shouldn't throw things to way to...
Well, Martha, not even the rest of the senior council.
Well, yeah,
but
Martha's like, there's propriety. It has to be, like, done the right way for a reason. If we, rush to conclusions now, like, where will it stop? And I like how, like, the rest of, the whole auditorium is just like, yeah, we can't rush this shit. Like, they're just, like, the oohing and awing the whole time as the senior council talks.
Pretty much, that's kind of the vibe going on, right? Is they're all like, we shouldn't do this. Yeah, we have to do this. No. Yeah. Well, wait.
Right.
Yeah.
But like, it's not like you've got like a stadium of like, young people at a game. You've got like, these are all like 200, 300, 400-year-old wizards.
Well,
that are like,
we're gonna
you've got any range, but it's
But
still
I was gonna say you've got every range.
it's not like the senior council are like the only people who are old. Like,
Yes.
right? Like,
yes, but the Merlin does try to give reason for it and being like the things moving so fast, like never has the Red Court sort of rushed things like this, like they're really just right, so we don't have time to follow all the again, apparently it took us 9 months just to have this meeting, so we need to be a little bit speedier about things now. We don't have another 9 months to debate on who should fill this spot so that we can start making plans. But
then there's Ebenezer, who's just like, no, you just want to get your favorite in there. Fuck you.
yeah, exactly. So this is
Don't bullshit us.
right. This is where you have at least Martha and listen to the twins. They're part of like trying to help out, right, and be like, well, maybe we should actually, and then a little the peanut gallery right there in Ebenezer. just loud enough, or not loud enough to be like yelling.
Start
like
some whispers.
Exactly, just enough to be heard. And he can tell that he's getting the goat. Like the Merlin's already getting annoyed and knows where.
To be fair though, the Merlin gets annoyed very easily.
Well, he does, but
like in the face of all of these wizard big personalities and stuff, you think he'd be a little bit more used to it at this point, you know?
Well, which I think speaks to something that exactly, like, a lot of them probably are, but obviously it tells you that there's, like, some history or that Ebenezer has some clout or something for...
I just saw Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. By the time anyone hears this episode, it will, like, probably be out of theaters, but it was so good. And, like, Wong the whole time, he's all like, you're supposed to bow to me because I'm, like, the Sorcerer Supreme. And, like, Doctor Strange is like, yeah, fuck off. Because the whole reason this is another movie, so it's not a spoiler. The whole reason that Doctor Strange isn't the Sorcerer Supreme is because he got snapped out for 5 years, so he didn't get to be Sorcerer Supreme. So then the other guy got to be it, and he's like, you're not in charge. And Doctor Strange's like, yeah, but I would be. And he's like, but you weren't here. So anyway, so he doesn't bow to him, he doesn't bow to him, right? And he's always just like, and the other guy's like, and then, as they meet other people, everyone always bows to him, he's like, yeah, see? Right? But Doctor Strange still refuses to bow to him, and it's just very funny, because it's like the Merlins, like, walk around like, you guys are supposed to bow to me, right? And Ellen's like, fuck you.
Yeah, exactly. Ebenezer's like, don't think so.
You're the Merlin, but we're all wizards, we don't care.
Yeah, exactly. But he basically just, again, he makes his comment, and the Merlin is just like, nobody wants to hear from you, Ebenezer. Like, go back to your mountain and stay there. I was like, whoa, it's like, dude. But everybody else, he's like, oh yeah, you're not welcome here, and never have been. It's like, ooh, where's the backstory on that? Where's the side stories on, like, Ebenezer's history?
Right. Well, and I might have misread this, but it looked like Ebenezer called the Merlin Alfred. Is that his name?
Yes. No, Arthur. His name is Arthur.
Arthur, yeah.
Why did I read Alfred?
He called him, he's like, aye, Alfred, laddie, I know.
Oh, so maybe he was just picking on him. Or maybe he changed his name, because it's...
Maybe he changed
Arthur
his name.
Langtree is what we eventually... So, either this is a Paula Rachel thing, and it's, like, multiverse time travel, or Butcher just changed his mind, or Ebenezer was just pushing his buttons.
One of these inconsistencies that might end up being time travel thing.
Inconsistencies.
Maybe this is a Batman reference we're not understanding.
Oh. Some kind of strange Scottish insult?
I don't know. Those Scots, if they call you Alfred, you're in for it.
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I sort of had glossed over that, that he says that then. But yeah, I know eventually it comes to be Arthur, so.
Okay.
It makes me wonder, though, like, we've actually never gotten a short story in the Dresden Files universe.
About Ebenezer?
No, where Harry's not 20 years old or older. Like, we've never had anything from Harry's youth at all. No teenager, no childhood,
older,
no nothing.
Yes.
And I'm like, wait a second, like, why not? We should have gotten, like, a childhood/teenager short story already.
Well, we got pieces of it in a book. He does some reminiscing.
Little flashbacks here and there?
Little flashback, yeah. Yeah, I don't... see, again, to me, I almost don't know if I would want that. Because I'm like, that's almost like...
Right now we're following
just so much
breadcrumbs.
There's so much of the universe, but we've got nothing for the first 20 years of his life.
Well, yeah, because, other than what he wants to give us. But I didn't think of it more as, like, I'm going to assume, that the adult Harry was, what was envisioned and created and worked with, right? So while, obviously, whatever Butcher puts in there is canon and is, he must have had some idea about what Harry's childhood was to make him the man he is today. Sometimes when you get to this point, when it's like 20, now it just feels like, well, he'd just have to be, feels like it would be more manufactured for what, rather than, like, natural, you know what I mean? It'd be like, oh, everyone wants to hear his backstory, now I gotta make up a backstory. And it's like, no, because now it's just gonna be some bullshit you thought up based on everything now, and not what, would have actually more like pandering to the masses and just coming up with something rather than what would be like wholly pure,
So the Merlin begrudgingly agrees to consult the registry for elder wizards.
That's a fucking process. Right. God damn, Butcher doesn't even list them all, and he lists so many. I'm like, hey, who cares? So we get, like, Montjoy.
Peabody. Will you consult the registry?
Montjoy. Gomez.
Research trip in the Yucatan.
Lucchiosi. I don't know. And then on and on and on it goes until finally we get to McCoy and Schneider.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wait, you're not even going to go with the interesting ones?
No.
He got real married.
As opposed to...
Ditto, but he got real married. and someone else is living under a polar ice cap. And someone else is pyramid sitting. Whatever that means.
Very interesting ways to say my dog ate my homework.
Well, no, I don't even think it's a dog ate my homework. I legit think this is where these people learn what they're doing. We're talking wizards. Somebody somewhere is pyramid sitting for some mummies or so. I don't even know. We don't get an explanation of what that is. But I think that's what makes it even funnier, is that they're not just excuses, is that this is like... But anyways, yes. So, the German that they suggested, Christus... Is this supposed to be? No, that comes after. Sorry, Schneider.
He declines the offer in favor of Ebenezer. Which
Yeah.
I was surprised to read that. Like, what?
And
You're the favorite. Why wouldn't you take it?
And I think it's simply protocol. All these stuffy wizards with their stuffy rules. So McCoy was called before because they're going in order of basically seniority for the senior council. Don't know what other qualifications you have to have, if any. But McCoy is called first, and then so McCoy stands up, obviously, I guess, indicating that he's willing to consider the position. They get to Schneider, who apparently is the next one, nobody else in between there.
This is the thing. However many names were called in all of this, you've got this many, like, senior guys who aren't showing up to these meetings. Like, this is how much Wizards like, who the fuck cares about this shit, right? Like,
well, I also interpret part of that as it was hard to get him a message under the polar ice cap, so he doesn't fucking know we're having a meeting. He might not even know there's a war.
Yeah.
But whatever.
So you think it's like a protocol and a technicality?
I think it's more, he was more than happy to take the position and be ushered in on the Merlin say-so, but now that somebody else with a legitimate claim that he's just being like, oh, well, I can't now, like it would be a huge faux pas and an insult, and it's just not done, because this is part of the problem Harry has with the council, is that they adhere to things. He's like, doesn't fucking matter if it's been done. If that's stupid, right? Whereas most of the rest of them. So I always take it as, I think more than that he would have taken it in a second if it had just been given to him.
Right.
But now, in front of a whole open council like this, he doesn't want, what everybody else will think. Like, well, that's just not done. Right. You can't challenge somebody. So
Ebenezer does accept the role.
Yeah.
1 down, 2 to go.
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Part of his plan is working out.
Such as it is, except the part of his plan is mean Ebenezer now to voluntarily join the council.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Much to his dismay.
Yeah.
He's fucking lucky I like you, kid. So yes, so with that tells us that was his first move, was to try, Merlin's first move in the plan was to try and get the council stacked in the Merlin's favor and against
So it's now
Harry's.
more balanced.
Now it's more balanced. Now they can't just automatically block everything, So
the meeting does move on, and they start to address the current war with Red Court. The Merlin asks Morgan for a tactical assessment, and Morgan sets up this really cool spell with the crystal and the candle and enchants them to produce this globe of the earth.
Yeah, which little holographic sort of...
Dresden, bah, I said in English. He stole the idea from Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Not that impressive. I love that he knows this other guy at the table just keeps giving, like, when he's trying to talk to Ebenezer before. And it's kind of funny, too, because, like, Ebenezer starts it by explaining the whole thing about he's going to have these 3 moves. And then as Harry tries to get more information, Ebenezer's like, shh, I'm trying to pay attention. It's like, you started to tell me about it. You're the one that... And then, so this other guy at the table keeps, like, glaring at them and shushing at them. He's like, oh, I stole that from Star Wars. And the other guy's just giving him looks again. He's like, we did. It's like... Again, you can just get that whole vibe. Harry being like the sullen teenager in the room or something. Like,
so we get a little bit of logistics from this report. And the Merlin does point out the majority of the attacks are in Western Europe. Mm-hmm. We find out from them that the Red Court's main power center is in South America. And they kind of cover that there's been minimal loss of life, and with the exception of this most recent Archangel attack, leaving many dead due to Wizard Petrovic's death curse.
Yeah, figured he probably took a whole bunch out with him with that, yeah.
Right. And it would appear that the Red Court may have access to information or aspects of the art that they had not had before. So that it sort of brings in that idea that you had said before, that there's a mole.
There's a mole. There's
getting something going on.
All
that's
of a sudden,
fishy.
they seem to have more information than they should or previously did. So, exactly if they've just been hiding it this whole time, or did they suddenly have more, access to everything. And that the wizards also have the disadvantage in this, given their travel restrictions, right? So all the vampires have to worry about is sunlight. So, I mean, technically we assume they can travel by night as long as they're not exposed, or I mean by day as long as they're not, exactly, stick them in a coffin and shove them in the back of a truck, they're fine, right? Whereas airplanes, cars, these are all, trains are all going to start having issues.
High-tech, faster boats.
High-tech, faster, yeah, exactly. So unless they're basically coming over on a steamship, so this is the thing is that, I mean, also just the fact that, let's see, vampires can run like 10 times as fast as we can because of their supernatural strength, so there's that. But then, yeah, anything else that mortals could use to flee quickly is not readily available, and especially if you start getting into numbers, like one guy might be able to hop on but all of a sudden if you've got a bunch of wardens or, this whole compound of Simons and that, like, you're definitely going to short shit out if you all try, if 20 wizards try and hop on a plane.
Right, if you can't even have lights on in the convention center.
If you can't even have, right, like, yeah, and I mean, granted, like, even though this isn't, it's kind of interesting, actually, too, that we didn't really sort of point that out in the beginning, but when Harry is saying, he's like, it's a smaller theater, and it's not, like, packed for, like, a matinee, but he's, like, considering that these are all wizards that are all in one place, so even that, is kind of, like, a fair number of, how often they all get together enough to move together and do whatever and stuff like that, right? It's that it's still a fair. So, yeah, they're kind of screwed. They have a lot of...
The point is, made, again, by the Merlin, is that they have to, as a result of that travel problems, is they have to secure the Never Never to make sure that they have some kind of advantage in this war.
Yeah, and as Harry pointed out more so in the last book when they popped in, that exactly things are different on that side, that... it might be a shorter distance between one point and the other, or the, the time manipulation being different and things like that. So, yeah, this is where the wizards are hoping to get, that exactly, instead of having to walk all the way around the world, they can walk 10 blocks in the Never Never and get the other side of the world, which would suddenly be a huge thing for them, right?
Yeah.
So it gives us a little more insight into that whole thing and how the Never Never works, too.
So the Merlin calls on Ancient Mind to speak next. Now, this is the first time, I think, that in reading these books that I think I've really noticed some of their age in the language. And
some of whose age in the language? Butchers?
Butchers. Because of his use of the word Oriental.
A lot, yeah.
Like, oh.
And it's like you can tell.
I know
like
it's not
trying.
It's
to
not
early
racist,
2000s,
but it's not appropriate either.
Yeah, it's like you can tell he's trying to be sort of just like he's not throwing it out as a slur, but then again, it's like, oh yeah, well that's not something we get to use. It's not taken as.
But I think that's probably one of the first times I've ever, beyond lack of cell phones.
Yeah, and just dating itself for concepts and issues.
Otherwise, I think it's
political correctness.
It really, for the most part, it stays very contemporary.
Yeah. Yes, it does, at least that way. But yeah. But it's kind of interesting here going over her description. And I don't know if you're going to go through any of that at all particularly, or...
Oh, you can go ahead.
Okay. Because, again, given her name predominantly, you always think of Ancient Mind. She has popped up a couple of times. But, again, I always have...
Or will.
But, again, as they describe her, she's a tiny little thing. She's got long gray hair. And so I always tend to think of her as being the more, like, grandmotherly, aged, wrinkled, kind of ancient, right? But it's interesting because, again, on the reread here, and he's like, she had delicate features only lightly touched by the passage of years. So it's like she actually still is a fairly
called ancient. She looks pretty good.
Ancient, and exactly right. She's got to be, again, we know Ebenezar's a few hundred years old, so she's got to be at least a few hundred years old if she, made it to the council. Although we did say he's turned it down a few times, but nonetheless, right, that she's probably up there. And again, with a title like Ancient Mai, okay, fine. So that refers more probably to her experience and longevity than,
or is ancient just her first name?
Or is ancient just her first name and it's not Mai, but yeah.
Or some kind of title.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, it partly is that, yes, I think now, but yeah, exactly. It was like, oh yeah, I sort of forget that she's actually not supposed to look like an old crone. She's actually still relatively young looking.
So Ancient Mai reports that Summer Queen Tatiana refuses to take sides and will remain neutral. And that Winter Queen Mab has not responded, but will basically likely do what she pleases. And she gives a very vague response.
Not only did she not respond, but like the messenger hasn't returned.
Don't kill a messenger. Oops.
Although, quite conveniently, as this sentence is finishing, guess who returns?
Well, not quite that soon, but yeah, basically, they're saying based on, it's not just that. They do have some precedents, right? And it's basically not just their assumption because the messenger hasn't returned, but they're like, basically, as far as we don't have word back yet, so basing it on the fact of other conflicts is not exactly as that Mab only ever does, what she wants when she wants, right? So
Right.
It's kind of funny, he kind of twitches or whatever, right? And what did he say? Is it the first time when they first mentioned that they got in touch or something like that? I don't know, because it says I twitched more. I forget where it says he did it.
Because the Merlin first the Merlin expands that the negotiations with Winter must continue or prevent that the Red Court needs to be
neutralized,
or that they can't make that same alliance. So they have to stop that.
Right. Yes, yeah, they can. Yeah, if they can't.
That's where Dresden starts getting really nervous. He's like,
shit. Yeah. So so then they're like, so yes, that's what Ebenezer says. He's like from Winter, and she's like, he hasn't returned. So if she chooses, what we can tell is if she chooses to, she will do it at her own time and of her own choosing. And then he starts twitching more. So he's trying not to do the whole nervous, like rattle his water glass,
So then the senior council is getting upset because they're all like, Simon knew them better than anyone and we don't have him anymore. And the Merlin's like, chill, like it sucks, but we've got to grow up and deal with this war.
Well, also just, if they got through him that knew them the best to be defended, that's not saying much for the rest of us. And
and Martha's all like
also
they've got no reason. The Merlin is like, we've got to whatever, at this point we've just got to try and make peace with the Reds no matter what they want. She's like, they're not going to make peace. They're winning the war. Why would they even settle for a deal? They don't need a deal.
They don't care about all the blood and carnage.
Right? And then that's when the Merlin's like, well, actually, they have accepted a deal, actually. That's why we're all here, actually.
They haven't accepted a deal. They've proposed one.
They've accepted to do a deal.
Yeah.
They actually are willing to do a deal, which is why we're having a meeting tonight, which is why we're having a meeting in Chicago tonight, because they actually did accept a deal. They are offering a deal, actually, Martha. Actually. Dumb Martha. Yes. Martha.
The second part of the Merlin's plan is taking form.
Mm-hmm. And he's trying to all play it cool. He's like, control your emotions, because, Liberty is all like, she's like, well, because he says until this conflict can be resolved, or she's like, resolved, I would have chosen, finished or whatever, and she's like, ask Simon how much, and he's like, yo, chill out. And she's like, fuck you.
Because it's always a good idea to tell a woman to stop being so emotional.
Calm down. Okay. They totally want to deal with us.
So the Merlin calls on Le Fortier to come speak about this
deal.
This
proposed deal.
Yes.
And they inform that the council that Duke Ortega, sound familiar?
A little bit.
Who is now the war leader for the Red Court, has drawn up terms for peace and a temporary cessation of hostilities effective that morning. Which Dresden literally calls bullshit.
Yeah.
and uses the attack from earlier as an example that they're not. They just attacked me.
Yeah, this morning. Hours ago. Not 2 days ago when you said this shit went down.
Right. This is where it gets super dirty. It's such a digs and dirtiness.
So good.
Lefortier just he's brutal.
Yeah.
First off, Lefortier suggests that Dresden might be lying.
Yeah.
And essentially states the Reds would be excused for their actions for attacking the person who started the war. And not only that, he continues to state, they defended an assault upon their sovereignty, Wizard. You, acting in the role of representative of this council, attacked a noble of their court, damaged her property, and killed members of said noble's household, and her as well. In addition, the records of local newspapers and authorities reveal that during the altercation, several young men and women were also killed, burned up in a fire, I think. Does that sound familiar to you, Wizard Dresden?
This
dig.
Yeah. Well, I know, because he's like, even if you're not lying, he's like, we can hardly expect perfect control. So it's like, I mean, okay, there's a certain truth to that. I'm sure you've got a lot of people all over, but at the same, but exactly, it's like, well, if a few of them didn't listen and killed you, oops, oh well.
He would have deserved it.
But yeah, and then basically, it's like, that's bad enough. And then, but like, really? Can you blame him? And Harry's like, yes, I can.
Right. It's funny because even though Bianca died, she still wins because of that.
Right.
This moment right here.
Yeah.
Like, it was so well planned out. Like,
Well, there is that. It's still, she doesn't get to reap any of the benefits, but she still gets to see, them go to war with the council and take out a bunch of them. And again, if this works, there's Dresden gotted. Okay, I didn't want to be taken out with him, but... So then there's exactly with the potential of the kids, because even Harry is saying is like, we don't really know for sure, like nothing could specifically be pinned on me because we don't know how many of them were actually dead before or not, or, so I mean, I think he is kind of lucky in some ways there that it didn't become a bigger deal more immediately with the council. Because again, given everything he said about it so far and, what we know of him and Justin, I'm like, well, you supposedly killed Justin in self-defense, and that wasn't necessarily enough. Here you torched the property or whatever based on your girlfriend getting, she hadn't even been bitten or turned or anything at that point yet, and you still let loose. And again, you think that, from the sounds of it, they don't really take the maybes too much into effect. So, it's surprising somebody didn't literally show up on his doorstep the next day to chop his head off because maybe he, you know what I mean?
right. And Duke Ortega has observed all of the behavior every single way that Dresden has fucked up.
Well,
and reported this.
Well, that's true. He was there to be, right? So, I mean, is it really that they're being that lenient that they're like, well, nobody can prove those bodies were, because I'm like, otherwise, I'm like, that was always something that did surprise me a little bit. I was like, sounds like they would have been there right away trying to, call you up on that and be like, well, we can't say for certain, but, better safe than sorry, so we're just going to execute you now, okay, Dresden, But I'm like, I don't know, he got away with that so far.
That last statement there where he's talking about the people killed in the fire, it just reminds me of a court scene where the lawyer knows that he's not supposed to say something, but says it to affect the jury, and they're like, objection.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, strike it from the record, my bad.
Okay.
Yeah.
Exactly.
The damage is done.
Yeah. So. Right? It's like, I think that's what happened. Right? So
objection, speculation. Oh, yes, of course. So, as angry as Harry gets and blah, 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 he contains himself long enough to be like, okay, well, what do they want then?
Right.
Yeah. And this is the other thing, is Harry finds himself, because, they're going on about this, and, he's like, again, blah, 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 about the victims, and he's like, I'm a lot of things, but I'm not a willing murderer. And then he's like, to my surprise, I found myself gathering in magic. It's like, yeah, not really what you want to be doing right now, Harry, I mean, Ebenezer was like, oh, you have a reputation as a hothead. I'm like, you are going to get yourself killed here.
On the bright side, there's, like, it's impossible for, like, the lights to flicker or the air conditioner to go on the fritz right now.
That's
to
true.
give him away.
However, like I said, though, he could sense everybody's aura just walking through the room. So I'm like, you're going to see, especially these people sitting next to him, aren't going to start noticing. I like again, as Harry says, he's a big brute.
I like to think, though, Harry or not, they're all just kind of used to, like, young wizards always doing that. Like, they're just used to them always being like, maybe you'll... And then you're like, okay, they all chill out eventually, Like, you see, like a little puppy that always just starts to, like, bite and nibble at your fingers, and everyone's like, oh, hilarious.
Unfortunately, Harry's no longer viewed as the puppy anymore.
I know, but still, like, I just think it's got to be, like, a common thing in the wizarding world. Like, every 20-something always is constantly being, like, huffing and puffing and, like... And then they get themselves where, like, all the seniors just like, it's
posturing and strutting.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. I was going to say, they definitely notice because Ebenezer catches his eyes and it's like, dude.
That's just Ebenezer, though. He knows
he's
Harry.
up on the stage.
He knows Harry.
So Lafortier suggests the council stands in the wrong and accepts the Red Council's terms for peace. And, of course, Dresden demands to know the terms, to which Fortier replies that they want justice, and...
Yeah, well, he tries to come up with a snotty response first, right? Like, what, a pint of blood from us, He's like, rights to hunt freely. It's like, yeah, no, Harry.
Lafortier replies that they want justice and that they want Dresden. This concludes our episode 9.4, A Game of Tactics. Thank you for listening. You can find us online at freeflowrambling.com and McAnallys.ca. There we have links to our other podcasts, social media, and other fun tidbits. Please subscribe if you like what you're hearing, and please consider supporting us through Patreon to keep the magic alive and to see more content. We are Free Flow Rambling. Conjure by it at your own risk.